Life is short. Live it. Love is rare. Grab it. Anger is bad. Dump it. Fear is awful. Face it. Memories are sweet. Cherish it. Life is short. Live it. Love is rare. Grab it. Anger is bad. Dump it. Fear is awful. Face it. Memories are sweet. Cherish it.
Good morning. Thank you so much for keeping it TV47. It's yet another beautiful week, and I look forward to take you throughout the week as we look at what is happening in the world of news and so much more. My name is Linda Alela, and it's always good to have you. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela TV47KE. Let's get to hear what you have to say about what has been playing out in terms of news over the weekend and marching into a new week. So much also in the political scene, even as we await to see what next as the talk of a referendum gains momentum, even as individuals equally prepare themselves and set themselves to, look at what plays out in politics in regards to their very own interest. And so today we'll be looking at who's going to be the kingpin or who will take over after the kingpins that we all know, right? Definitely the conversation gaining momentum in Central or the Mount Kenya region. Do not forget the Nyanza region, and across all other regions. Every other of them is trying to position themselves as, the key figures in the line of politics in these particular regions are also positioning themselves for these particular slots. So karibu sana. Let's look at all this. It's always a pleasure to have you join us. My name is Linda Alela, like I said. And first things first, we'll look at the papers. Also later on, we'll be looking at matters held, and it's very important that you stay tuned because, well, this is a conversation that you do not want to miss out on, a conversation that will guide you through and help you address some of the key issues that would bedevil you in as pertaining to matters fertility, the aspect of infertility. We look at how best we can run away from the same, because a majority of these problems are caused by us, well, based on the kinds of lifestyle that we live. So we drop that one. First look at the papers. The Daily Nation is here. Eyes on Ruto's allies as Senate votes on a BBI bill. Will they or will they, like some of their National Assembly colleagues, pass the bill? Is a question of wait and see. A story captured on page 5 of the Daily Nation is the momentum right now, and we'll be having the guests this morning to give us their view on what they feel. And well, genuinely, as they would say, there's not much of an effect this would have, because after all, the document will definitely take us to a referendum, but then it's instrumental that we get to know the view of these legislators, because well, their view in a huge way will impact on how the Kenyans will decide on this particular bill. Away from it, celebrating Mother's Day, a story captured on page 3, and generally all the people went out there to celebrate their mothers, just acknowledging the importance these beautiful human beings have, have brought into their lives, of course, how important they've been into their lives. And we definitely take that moment also to specially say here, courtesy of Morning Cafe, we celebrate all the mothers out here. COVID-19 vaccines to be recalled from counties, at least 9 devolved units targeted in bid to avoid wastage. A story captured on page 7. This also coming from the fact that a majority of Kenyans have decided to shy away from taking these particular vaccines. Well, what could be informing this is something that is debatable, as a majority of them do not have the confidence on this. But again, we ask ourselves, out of all the numerous Kenyans, why is it then that the few slots that were brought into the country still are not being put to use. A story captured on page 7. We'll be looking at that as we proceed. And the biggest story on the front page of the Daily Nation, the 3 are opposed to a proposal in the BBI bill to create 70 new constituencies. Just who are these 3? On a secret meeting that they held, open defiance, the likes of Siaya Senator James Orengo, Rarieda Member of Parliament Otiende Amolo, and Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya. Also, one of Mr. Odinga's deputies, that is Oparanya, says that he has set his eyes on running for State House. He has also held meetings with Deputy President William Ruto in regards to his political moves. And, well, Rarieda Member of Parliament was kicked out of the National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, in which he also served as vice chairman for going against the party's position. And on the other hand, Siaya Senator James Orengo, a leading ally and defender of Mr. Odinga, the veteran politician, has found himself also on the wrong side of his boss on matters BBI. He is opposed to the proposed 70 new constituencies, and we'll be looking at that. Well, we ask ourselves just what could be informing this about turn or U-turn from these particular individuals who've constantly been seen out there, proposing or trying to get people to endorse this document as it stands. So are they rebels or are they genuine, as they would say? If there is a problem, it is only fair that they pinpoint this problem and therefore should not be criminalized. So things are getting tougher, thick, that is in ODM party, as of course these key individuals are going against the party position on the BBI bill. And as it would be, a majority of others have also come out to tell them, reprimand them and remind them that it's either they are with ODM or they are against ODM. The likes of Opio Andai, the likes of Junet Mohammed, and the likes of John Mbadi have castigated this individual hugely. And so we'll be looking at that even as we proceed with the broadcast. And so also, we have the People Daily. Let's try and get it loading. And once we get it loading, then we get to know what has been captured on the front page of the People Daily. Same applies to what it is that has been captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Why BBI is a do or die for Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Stuck with President Uhuru Kenyatta in the push for a referendum against a simmering internal party revolt. Opposition Chief Raila Odinga finds himself and his 16-year-old ODM in last gasp political maneuvering. And of course, there's a story also that is captured on page 8 as we await to see what plays out at the level of the Senate and generally even as the conversation of a referendum is looming. Why those street eggs could land you in hospital. That is also a story captured on page 3. You get details of the same as you get to grab a copy of that. 2 women's account on death of mans they loved. Also another story captured in regards to this sportsman, renowned sports person, captured on page 6 and 7. And the bullying epidemic that must be stopped. The Global School Health Survey 2017 ranks Kenya among the top countries in the world with a high prevalence of secondary school bullying, yet this worldwide problem has negative consequences for students. What needs to be done to ensure that this is stopped? As captured on page 14 and 15, even as our students go back to school today. Indeed, a majority of you will tell us that you probably have had this experience, and therefore this is not strange, definitely something that needs to be rooted out. As time goes by, many would argue such is not the case, or such is not as rampant as it used to be back then, but indeed students are suffering in silence, and that survey speaks volumes of what it is that needs to be done. So you can grab a copy and get to see what plays out in regards to that. On matters health, vaccine deserts, poor countries with no jobs. Interestingly to note that also, as we have seen on the Daily Nation, some of these jobs are gotten out of the counties and back to the main store here in Kitengela, just because a majority of Kenyans are not coming out to get the job and they risk being rendered useless. While wealthier nations have stockpiled vaccines for their citizens, Many poorer countries are still scrambling to secure doses. A few, like Chad, have yet to receive any. A story captured on page 29. It's been a tough scenario for Chad. Indeed, we are hoping that it's going to be easy for them and they also get a chance to get the vaccines. The sports, or in the world of sports, what to expect, who to support in Euro 2020. The UEFA European Champions is like a World Cup except for European teams. Between June 11 and July 11, there will be 51 games with the group strange, a torrent of live football. A story captured on page 38 and 39. And so our men are going to get busy on that angle. And so that is on Matters BBI, Matters Sports, and so much so that is playing out and what has been captured on the papers. And let's take a look at what is on the front page of the People Daily. When high flyers bite the dust. A story captured on page 2. Reminder on these individuals that have been impeached. And when high flyers bite the dust, it says, from CSs to governors and heads of parastatals, city streets are littering with former powerful people who have been forced to come down to earth. And you have seen what it is that has played out in these individuals' lives, even after, even as, of course, we all knew them as these powerful individuals. Right now, their names are nowhere to be had. And that's an interesting story that, just takes us back to reminiscing and just getting to understand how power can corrupt, how, sometimes they are your friends only and only at that point when you are in power. But once you exit the stage, it's a whole different affair. And my system is acting up on me, but not to worry, we'll still get a hold of the same. And we look at all these details on the other stories that have been captured. That is on the People Daily. Still the conversation on matters politics, even as Senate, or our eyes are on Senate, just to see how best Lusaka is able to speak or make a decision on the aspect of the BBI. I say Lusaka because he is the Speaker of Senate. Ruling is expected to guide Senate on whether to correct anomalies picked by Joint Legal Committee or pass it without alteration. What plays out, of course, is a question of wait and see in regards to the politics of the BBI. Struggles of a celebrated teen mother. Well, that is also in regards to yesterday's celebrations of the mothers out there. And of course, teachers under pressure over low job uptake as schools reopen. Parents and unions express concern over health mystery, or the health ministry says only 143,525 out of the country's 337,432 tutors, 41% that is, have taken COVID-19 vaccine 2 months after exercise was launched in the country. Captured on page 4 and 5, and the conversation is on as we have our students or our children go back to school today. What could be informing this is one thing that many are asking: how best do we run away from a scenario where the spread of COVID-19 is going to shoot up, is equally dependent upon us. And as they would say, remember to always keep the guard high, and if you're able to access the vaccine, kindly go out there and get vaccinated. That's on the papers. We'll be looking at them alongside my guests later on. Nothing much happening on the roads in terms of traffic. Well, it's a Monday morning. You definitely would expect so much traffic, especially at this point that students are going back to school, and maybe as early as now, still people are out to step out of the houses. I'll be here to make sure that you are posted, and on that reason, and because it's also rainy, I think it is only fair that we look at the roads later on towards the end of the broadcast, because as of now, not much is happening across the different parts. I'm just looking around what is in Mombasa Road, or what is happening along Mombasa Road. There's some tenets of traffic, and yes, it's not so bad around South B. It's quite heavy, and going down to these other parts of as you get to the city, yes, the tenets of traffic are quite huge around Mombasa Road or along Mombasa Road, and therefore if you're taking that direction, you definitely know what it is that you expect. Also applies on these other sides of Kamukunji, that is also Jogoo Road and City Stadium. Around there you find that there's some tenets of traffic, but then again it is moving slowly by slowly. It looks like it's going to get worse by the day, And so if you have to step out of the house, kindly do that as early as now. Lunga out here also not looking so bad this morning on this other side. Enterprise Road is as clear as you can see right now. So Likoni Road on this other side also is not looking so bad this morning. Well, it's only Mombasa Road that is quite alarming. We'll go to Thika Road and see what is happening there. This is Langata Road. Not so bad, some tenets of traffic, roadworks ongoing still, where you get to connect to Gotv also, and Gotv doesn't look so bad this morning. On the other end is the southern bypass down here, doesn't look so bad this morning. As you can tell, the southern bypass going all the way as you get to connect to Langata Road, get to connect to Mombasa Road, not looking so bad. And we dropped the southern bypass from Gotv to Ngong Road. Ngong Road is not so bad this morning also. There are some spots where you find some tenets of traffic around the junction mall and going down to this other place, but then again it does not look as ugly as you definitely expect with the rains and the fact that we're having students going back to school. State House Road not looking so bad this morning. On this other side you find some tenets of traffic around the University of Nairobi, that is the University Way, and yes, that's a bit clogged up, but then again it is flowing. It's at the yellow level, which is not as bad. And this is Waiyaki Way on this other side. Waiyaki Way pretty much over knees until you get to the ABC place. Proceeding on, some tenets of traffic around here that's quite heavy, not as heavy as such, but then again equally moving or flowing. And on this other side of James Gishuru going down to Gitanga Road, all not looking bad this morning. The other side, Red Hill, Limuru Road, not bad this morning. Muthaiga, yes, some tenets of traffic around Thika Road, Muthaiga, as you get to connect to these places and getting yourself into the city around Pangani Place. It's quite heavy, quite jammed up, and so if you're taking that direction, definitely this is it that you expect. On this other side of Thika Road, not really bad. Garden City is clear, all down to Isambu and down to Githurai. It's pretty much clear this morning. But, well, looking at what is happening around Pangani, then you can be rest assured you expect that traffic will pile up in a few. So if you're able to step out as early as now, kindly take advantage of the same. To what it is that my team has prepared, and residents of Baringo South are concerned that their children might not report back to school for third term, which starts today following spate of banditry attacks. Many have fled from their homes and are now camping at GSU camps, as Sharon Baranga tells us.
As learners across the country prepare for schools reopening for third term Monday, their counterparts in Baringo South are fleeing from their homes.
Sasa mnamehama mara ngapi? Mara 4. Kwa kuama na kurudi. Kwa kuama na kurudi. Hata mimi nasani ya leo hata sitabui kama takuaji.
Schools that have been affected are Kapindasum, Arabal and Chemorongion.
Kama mimi mama wa familia, niko na watoto, niko na mbuzi 5, lakini sasa nimeshindwa nielekee wapi.
Hofu ilianza tangu wafamia mkutane, kwa sababu watu walikuwa najua next ni Haraba. Kwa hivyo hofu bado iko mingi.
GSU camps have turned to be temporary homes for the residents, even as the area continues to record an increase in banditry attacks. For the last 1 month, cases of cattle rustling in Baringo have been part of news items.
We as people of Baringo County, we are wondering what to do. We are asking the government to tell us point blank if they have been totally defeated to stop this nonsense of cattle rustling.
Last week, Rift Valley Regional Commissioner George Natembeya had a closed-door meeting with security agencies in an effort to find a lasting solution to the increasing banditry attacks in Baringo South. The operation in Tiati to flush out bandits has remained a challenge to security agencies, who seem to be overwhelmed with the vastness and the rugged terrain of the region. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
Thank you, Sharon, for that. We certainly hope that indeed they're going to get a solution to the same as soon as possible for the kids to be able to go to school. The Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutyambai, has ordered a probe into sexual harassment claims and corruption allegations after a female police officer's video went viral. In the video, the officer is accusing her seniors of mistreatment and corruption in the police service, as Mwangi Maina tells us.
Mimi naomba tu afadhali nipewe tu nafasi niende nitoke ni resign peacefully. Hata wamekataa kuni resign. Nimeandika several resignation letters attached to hospital letter. They hazifiki.
In a passionate yet bitter plea to President Uhuru Kenyatta to disband the Internal Affairs Unit of the National Police Service and to the Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai to accept her resignation, a female police officer attached to the Traffic Department in Mombasa County has unearthed the plight of female officers in the National Police Service. The lady, who says she cannot stand the mistreatment, wants to leave the service voluntarily and engage in other civilian duties.
Internal Affairs inafanya kazi gani sasa? I would like even to address my excellence Uhuru Kenyatta. Aondoe tu kabisa hiyo ofisi ya Internal Affairs. Hakuna ofisi hapo. Hakuna my excellency. Hakuna ofisi hapo. Tunateseka. Hiyo ofisi iko hapo but full of corruption. Corruption ndio iko nyingi na wanalipwa. Kwa nini wanalipwa? Unalipwa kasi na bado unafanya huwezi deal. Kwa nini wanalipwa mshahara na hawezi deal cases?
She accuses her bosses of mistreatment and laments over the Internal Affairs Unit over corruption and now wants the department disbanded by President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Kwa sababu ya hii shida. Afadhali mimi siwezi huwa mtu. Mimi natoka nje na huwa hata nimeanza naenda nje lakini nataka tu mnisaidie. Sasa Inspector General nisaidie tu nitoke kwa hii kazi ya polisi kwa sababu nimechoka na nikienda nje nitasafaform vizuri sana, nitafanya kitu yangu. Sitaki kazi ya polisi. Pesa zangu acha wachukue. Mchukue hiyo pesa, Mungu atawauliza pesa zangu.
Taking to Twitter, the Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai has responded by calling for an investigation into the matter and now wants a report handed to him within 7 working days from the Gender and Children Directorate. Mutyambai says, and I quote, "I have learnt of a video trending on social media where a female police officer is captured lamenting against unfair treatment and sexual harassment. The officer is attached to the Traffic Department in Mombasa County. She had complained against a merchant, hence subjected to an inquiry by DCI officers, resulting into a departmental action." End of quote. The Internal Affairs Unit within the National Police Service is mandated to receiving and investigating complaints against police, with other roles including promoting uniform standards of discipline and good order in the service, keeping a record of facts of any complaints of investigations filed, and where necessary, the unit may investigate and recommend appropriate action in respect of anyone found engaging in any unlawful conduct, as well as investigating misconduct and hear complainants from members of the service or members of the public. The traffic police officer claims she has written several resignation letters to the Inspector General of Police, but none has been responded to. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
Oh, such an unfortunate occurrence there. But thousands of learners will resume classes today. The resumption comes amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Those in grade 4 will, however, not resume learning as directed by the Ministry of Education. Our Education Affairs reporter Andrin Kilemi did a spot check in different bookshops and uniform stalls and filed the following report.
After a 7-month break, it is back to school once again. Thousands of learners will be resuming classes Monday for third term. A spot check in the city indicates a myriad of activities in preparations for resumption of classes.
Namlea msichana wangu Kachuleta, anaitwa Dorothy Mweni, anaenda form 3 mwezi wa 7.
I'm buying back to school for my grandson who is going to PP1. With Corona, you have to be very careful on what you're doing.
And with the altered school calendar occasioned by COVID-19 pandemic, most buyers seem to have an easy time with their back-to-school shopping.
We are not buying many things, just a few things like the crayons, the cover, which I used to cover the books.
Booksellers, however, say their businesses have been recording low sales with handful of buyers.
Back to school at this time, si kama vile inakuwa hapo zamani, inakuwa watu wamejaa. Sasa hii kwa sababu ya COVID-19 watu wamekuwa kidogo.
We expected to have more customers today because it's on Sunday and we are expecting students to return to school tomorrow.
Tomorrow being on Monday, tunatarajia customer wengi.
According to the new school calendar announced by the Ministry of Education, learners in grade 4 will resume learning on the 26th of July 2021 when the new school calendar is set to kick off. The term will run all through to October 1st, allowing learners to break for just a week. Second term will start on the 11th of October and end on the 23rd of December. Third term will begin in January 2022 and end on the 4th of March 2022. KCPE 2021 will begin on the 7th of March to 10th of March 2022, with KCSE scheduled to start a day later and end on April 1st, 2022.
Preparations for back to school are underway, with learners expected to resume learning tomorrow as the new school calendar is scheduled to start on the 26th of July 2021. Andrine Akilemi, TV47, Nairobi.
BI bill just passed the National Assembly and up for decision in the Senate on Tuesday. A replica of Thursday's messy and noisy debate is no doubt expected in the Senate. Traitors and sellouts, they call them, as a section of Tanga members of Parliament said yes to pass the BBI. And the interest of representation is all some of them needed to ditch their long-time friends. But with it, Mount Kenya region leaders counting Deputy President William Ruto for top position, including the positions of Deputy President and Prime Minister in a possible Ruto government in 2022. If the BBI bill is to pass, Tanga naysayers may just be shooting themselves in the foot.
When Deputy President William Ruto met a section of Mount Kenya leaders, including economists and 18 MPs from 11 Mount Kenya counties at the Masai Mara Game Reserve in Narok County on Sunday last week, ahead of Thursday's BBI vote in the National Assembly, the plan was to negotiate the region's support for the Deputy President in the 2022 general election. Having largely opposed the amendment to the Constitution, DP Ruto's meeting with his allies ahead of the vote was largely interpreted as closing the ranks before the vote the following week.
Honour members.
But some of Ruto's allies could not resist the BBI goodies on the floor of the House on Thursday.
I vote yes.
A record of over 7 Tanga MPs, including Mara Member of Parliament Karek Mbiuki, nominated MP David Ole Sankok, Owen Bayo of Kilifi North, Joash Nyamoko of North Mugirango, Ainab Koi's William Chepkut, his Njoro counterpart Charity Kathambi, Gishugu's Gishimu Githinji, recently elected Msambweni MP Faisal Bader, and Chepalungu's Gideon Koskei voted to pass the bill.
I say a big no. No to deception, no to conmanship. And to those of you making noise, there is nothing you can do to me. Cowards, traitors, sellouts.
Although some have chosen to defend their decision to support the bill, DP Ruto says it was their democratic right. The second in command says when the people's turn comes, they too will vote and the country will march on. He further says everyone's decision should be respected and accept the democratic outcome. Ruto has on many occasions been seen as an opposer of the BBI bill.
Lazima uangalie, where are we going? For example, as in Gotv, if I could have said no and Central they want seats from Central, wamefinywa miaka yote hawajapata equal shares ya presentation of the parliament. Saa hii wanapata. Mimi nirudi nipinge hiyo. Nitarudi niende huko nikaombea DP kula namna gani? We must be wise.
Although Ngunjiri and his pro-BBI Tanga allies claim their support for DP Ruto is still intact, when it comes to interest, the mountain crumbles to cover those it represents.
Among those people who voted yes, there is quite a substantial number of members who are with us. And they asked to vote the way they want. One, with their conscience. Number two, with the political realities on the ground. The base, the support for Dr. Ruto is solid. It's as solid as it has ever been, and it will even get more solid.
Some of the people who are perceived, to be die-hard supporters of Ruto, they broke ranks, and the reason that now they are giving, those excuses some are giving that, this was not a question of a confidence in government, it was not a question of dissenting from DP. That was a clear message that the DP has lost ground, the ground that he has always been talking about, and especially in Mount Kenya.
As Ruto's camp nursed injuries from the first round of the BBI battle, the proponents of the bill celebrated their might in the mighty game of numbers. But Mathira Member of Parliament Rigathi Gachagua has invited the DP's opponents to table an impeachment motion against Ruto to measure their numbers in Parliament.
And it should set a sign to those who have been sabotaging the work of His Excellency the President, that a time might come that we can invoke those numbers. They have always been telling us that they have the numbers. They have been doing meetings in Karen, superimposing numbers. When they are even less than 20, they say that they are 100. When they are like 50, they say they are like 160. We want to tell them that the truth has come out, that they don't have the numbers.
Let them hold their horses, but if they feel confident enough, we know they have been trying to impeach Dr. Ruto for a long time, and they fear because of raising the numbers that are required, the 2/3 majority. If this voting last Thursday has given them confidence to bring impeachment proceedings against the Deputy President, there's nothing stopping them. They don't have to have false bravado in press conferences. All they need to do is get a third and bring the proposal and bring it to the floor of the House. We debate it and we pass it either way.
Just a few hours after more than 225 members of Parliament passed the bill, over 50 Mount Kenya leaders retreated to Nakuru Senator Susan Kihika's home in Karen to allegedly develop an alternative economic model. Sources reveal that apart from the new economic strategy, the MPs are bidding for top positions in the would-be Ruto government in 2022, including the Deputy President position. The Mount Kenya region is also eyeing the position of Prime Minister if the BBI passes in the planned plebiscite. Notably missing in action at the meeting were those who supported the bill in what seems like sidelining the alleged Tanga traitors. However, as the Senate proceeds to decide on the bill on Tuesday before it is presented for public vote, a similar change of tune is expected among senators allied to Ruto as they weigh and defend evolution in the BBI bill.
Senate represents the counties and the interests of the counties. The county assemblies have already made a decision on behalf of the counties. So Senate can only reinforce those interests, or be seen that they are not taking care of the interests of the counties. So I expect them to vote without amendment.
All right, that is one of the key stories that forms the basis of our conversation this morning, even as we await to see what will be the fate of the BBI bill at the level of the Senate. And so I'll engage the guests of the day, and we just get to hear their view, one, in regards to this, because as we speak the state of the nation, it is almost inevitable for us to, probably have a conversation and, run away from this one. It's probably technically the biggest story of the day. That is, as we look at the politics of the day, yes. Lots of using the word day. And so Barak Muluka, that is Dr. Barak Muluka, Communications Advisor, joins us this morning. And we also have governance expert Gabriel Muthuma for this particular conversation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for creating time to be with us this morning. Having gone through that story or listened to that particular story compiled by Musa Salam, it is evident that the conversation of the BBI is still on. First, just looking at the numbers and what played out in Parliament, I'm sure we've not had a chance to speak about this, Barak, and same applies to Muthuma. First, karibu sana in our studios. I know it's your first time here, and I'm happy that you could grace the set this morning. Do you agree that the DP doesn't have the numbers? I mean, because my understanding is that, well, the conversation of the BBI, much as there's so much politics that is inclined into it, reality is that this is a democratic space, and therefore, in as much as you incline to a certain particular party or a certain particular side or faction, does not necessarily mean that you have to take the position of that particular, side in terms of deciding on crucial matters like this. And after all, it has not been clear on what position this side holds, because the DP has constantly said that he's neither against or for this document.
Well, Linda, thank you so much, and good morning. I know it's been a long time since we sat together to do anything politics, but I'm glad at least to get to meet. First of all, the issue of numbers, it depends on who you ask. First of all, you do have the proponents who have pushed BBI through and through. I mean, we are looking at 3 years since we started talking about the 9-point agenda, which morphed into BBI, and a lot of work, it's true, has gone into it. You remember the team led by the late Haj did quite a lot of traversing the entire country to pick views and collect views and what have you, and so they came up with this bill. At this point, to start introducing the game of numbers, I wouldn't do it. Reason being, the last thing you want BBI to produce is an us versus them. And if you start, the kind of chest thumping that we are seeing across, then you're going to lose the message, because right in there, when you look, and this is what I encourage Kenyans to do, when you look at the 9-point agenda, it talked more about harmony, many things, creating the national ethos, whether you're looking at inclusivity, all right? And yes, the DP, when he had the time at Bomas, he raised the issues that he thought, were pertinent at that particular point, and he left it at that. And it's true, as you've said, he has never been calling out, or he has never really talked about where his position is. But what he's made clear is that he was not going to lead the no campaign. And so he left it, I think, to the masses of the leaders. And true to the fact, people have gone too much in, and you've seen how overwhelmingly the bill got support from the county assemblies and now in Parliament. And I mean, heading to the Senate. I really do not think there's anything much that the Senate is going to do. And that's why I keep insisting and telling people, if the court does not stop this process, Linda, take it from me, we are heading to a referendum.
All right, Barak. Reality too is that we just cannot overlook what played out at the level of the National Assembly. In as much as we say, yes, it's a democratic space, and therefore the leaders spoke on behalf of the people that they represent, in as much as they affiliate to a certain, political party or a certain side of a Jubilee party. Again, you just cannot overlook that, and hence the reason why the game of numbers is something that has been introduced. This conversation that probably could not be taking us to, a healthy direction has been introduced. A conversation of, impeachment and all that. While we might argue that it's not necessary to have it right now, sometimes it gains momentum to a point that we can't control.
Thank you very much, Linda. As I was listening, I was just trying to jot down some very quick numbers, which I believe are accurate. But again, as Gabriel Muthuma says, it depends on where one is looking at it from. When you begin isolating individuals and trying to look at their numbers, then you must isolate each and every individual and ask yourself what their numbers are. In terms of a specific motion, and assuming that this no motion in the National Assembly belonged to the Deputy President, and which is in question anyway, you would say that his numbers were beaten. But remember, as I have said, it's if we assume that he owns it, because we are aware that all along he has been saying that he has other things to address and not this competition. But let's look at it this way, that the Jubilee Party had 140 elected members of the National Assembly, if I am not wrong. Yeah. So either 139 or 140 or thereabout, making allowance also, of course, for the ones who are deceased, and therefore the fact that they could not have been there. Now, when you look at that, you will see that Ruto had 83.
Okay.
We can say, therefore, Raila Odinga with ODM has 59.
Okay.
Uhuru Kenyatta has 57.
Okay. And therefore?
Kalonzo Musyoka has 19. Musalia Mudavadi has 12.
Okay.
And Gideon Moi has 10. So they have to mass these troops together in order to beat William Ruto. And therefore, let us not talk about numbers. In fact, this country starts becoming a little bit nauseating. We are supposed to be asking about the substance of the BBI bill and whether, in spite of how people are voting for it, it is good for the country or not. If you read me, and you probably read me over the weekend, I said that we have become a nation of cows, and we are led by cows, and cows, as you know, do not think. We are not looking at what this thing is going to do for the country, whether it is good or bad. We are saying, how many heads of cattle are you bringing? And as Barack, as a patriot, as a citizen of this country, I would be encouraging the leaders to keep on telling us what it is about BBI. And you can see that the people who are saying that they have conscience are now in the space of open defiance. They are saying, no, I cannot live with this in the future. So perhaps we shouldn't talk about numbers in that context. But if we were to talk about numbers, and we must talk about numbers, therefore, it is critical that we look at the breakdown that I have given. And if we assume that these are somebody's cows, and this person will migrate with them howsoever they desire. You remember the biblical story about the children of Israel. When they wanted to leave, and Moses went to the Pharaoh, he told him that the people want to go and pray for 3 days, but they must go with their cows. Yeah? So if each one of these must migrate with the cows, you must ask, where is he going with these 83? And what is the balance?
The 83, now that we want to run away from this conversation of numbers, and probably Muthuma could come in on this, 50 plus 1 is what we look at. If we are looking at the bigger picture, can the 83 give the DP 50 plus 1?
At this point, when you substantiate the 80 members, not likely. But you see, that is not what we will look for unless you're talking about very important bills. And Linda, there is something that is happening in this country, and even the people who voted yes, and earlier on they were saying they will not vote for BBI. It tells you any self-respecting politician who listens to the people will do according to the people. The first articles of our Constitution tells us that the sovereign power rests with the people. And so if you're conscious about what is happening, I find it a little bit unique politically that you've had people rise up to the occasion based on the financial muscle and the financial formula that is being used. Albeit the fact that when you talk about the 70 extra counties, constituencies, it has become a bone of contention. You now have people saying, all right, this is our mass or population, and we have only gotten one constituency. And now people have started talking about numbers. You've had somebody come and say, this region has about 2 million. The population is about 2 million, and we only got maybe 2 constituencies. The other area, which has less, got 4. And you have now people coming out to start and understand what kind of method did you use, to come up with these new constituencies. You see, we have now people who have sat back and start deciphering how, the constituencies were arrived at. And you see, many people have now gone back, retreated to the people to actually sell some of these points within BBI in the assumptions that we are bringing you more money. We are bringing you more money. And remember, these probably were people who are not part of BBI, or who had said they are not part of BBI, and Gotv being one of them. From day one, he's been poking holes in BBI, but when push came to shove, he was the first person to come to the floor of the House and vote a yes. So I think with these numbers that Deputy President William Ruto got, would they assist him somewhere along the road? Definitely yes. When you look at, it's a significant number, if you will. So if you have important bills and you are strained for numbers, any self-respecting leader will knock at his doors. If I take you back to 2007, there's a reason as to why the former President Mwai Kibaki ran to Kalonzo Musyoka very quickly after the elections, which, as you saw, was quite argumentative. But immediately he did that. It is because Kalonzo had some numbers. He needed those numbers to be able to pass critical bills in Parliament. And guess what? He had to part with the vice presidency and give it to Kalonzo Musyoka because he had some numbers that he required. So in our political arena, in our political dynamics, Linda, those numbers do highly count, and they can come handy on any given time, mostly when you're passing critical bills. Those numbers are not to be taken lightly.
So who in this case should change tact in terms of the approach they're taking? Because let's face it, while BBI could be about changing or amending the constitution, and as proponents would argue for the benefit of the common man, it's hugely equally about 2022. And so if at all these individuals, any of them, the proponents, the dissenting voices, would have anything to do with 2022, then definitely they read the signs and in a huge way probably are pushed to a level where they have to change tact. So who in this case is going to change tact, or is supposed to, if at all they have to, face the tide all the way to 2022? Barak.
Yes, there are two issues that you raise here, Linda, and I'd like to address both of them. First, in terms of these numbers that we saw in the National Assembly, we may not quite accurately use them in the electoral space, transferring them to electoral space, because we are talking about constituencies. And we would have to disaggregate and then aggregate them in terms of understanding how many voters are behind each one of these numbers. Therefore, it's not quite easy to say that in terms of the 50% plus one, this is how they work out. Some of the constituencies may have 50,000, others may have 5,000, and therefore you are not quite clear about that here. In terms of who has got to change tact, perceptions are important in politics. And secondly, nature abhors weakness. It starts looking like the deputy president is beleaguered. And if he is beleaguered, number 3, instinct is more powerful than reason. People who have been with you will retreat into the space of instinct, and the most powerful instinct is the instinct of self-preservation. And as you look at these numbers, you must appreciate what is called self-preservation. What my brother Gabriel Muthuma is sugarcoating and saying any self-respecting MP. It's not any self-respecting legislator. It's any self-preserving. Any self-preserving legislator. will retreat into this space. And therefore, the deputy president has got to reflect afresh about the initial euphoria that he was traveling with. A majority of the people in any given environment are followers. There are very few leaders, and the followers in politics especially will flow along with you based on whether they are seeing that the euphoria is going with you, and they are thinking that the masses will go with you. And finally, these numbers, as I have said, when you look at these 83, yes, they were with the deputy president. I want to believe they'll continue to be with him, but they are isolated. These other fellows come together, they gang together. There's the notion of ganging. When people have come together, we call them a gang, and they can be called gangsters. And when you confront gangsters, even when you are Bruce Lee, they will beat you up. So you must ask yourself, how am I going to deal with the gang? And if you say, I'm a very strong fellow, I will throw a sucker punch and a roundhouse and whatever, they could damage you. And therefore, the strategy may require a bit of revisiting, if not a thorough revisit.
Well, they say one day in politics is like many years, and one would ask, does he even have time to probably change much on that? We come to that later. Now that you brought up the aspect of the 70 constituencies, and here we are, is one of the key stories that have been captured on the papers, front page of the Daily Nation. And the three are opposed to a proposal in the BBI bill to create 70 new constituencies. We know who the three are. Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, Rarieda Member of Parliament Otiende Amolo, Siaya Senator James Orengo. I want us to base our focus much on what Kakamega Governor says. And much as he has registered his interest, for the big seat that is in ODM, we'll be looking at the aspect of who takes up the mantle from the kingpins as it stands right now. But now, before that, Kakamega Governor brings on board this issue of numbers, especially as pertaining to the constituencies. He says you cannot have 35 in one particular region and the rest 35 to the rest of the regions. Kind of makes sense. Can someone enlighten us on what really these 70 constituencies are as enshrined in the BBI bill, and how actually they were arrived at? If at all we have to have this conversation.
You see, Linda, the other thing, people think that the game of numbers, and this I'm talking in terms of constituencies, people think it's just started with BBI. That's not it. If you look at it, sometime back, even in the first tenure of the Jubilee administration, there were some MPs who had raised this concern, and the concern was, how do we look at the resource mobilization? How do we look at how we disperse resources? Are we going to base it on per head, or are we going to base it on the landmass? And this has actually been a thorny issue since we promulgated the 2010 Constitution. The reason being, you had devolution come in, but Mount Kenya region has always felt as if devolution shortchanged them. In what way? In this way. They said, first of all, we give in much, and this one you have to give it to them. It doesn't matter.
They do.
It doesn't matter. We can decide to play politics on it, but the fact of the matter is, they give in too much into the tax basket. So give that to them. And so you will find there was a time, actually, I remember the county of Meru was saying, this is what this county brings out. The county, there were northern counties, Siolo and what have you. We do a lot of trading, but they still take a lot from us. It would rather be that you do not hurt us when you're giving it to them. So be fair. And that's what they were calling upon. That is actually what morphed. All right? And here I'm not playing politics. That's what morphed into the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling.
Right.
They were saying, our population, when you look at how we disperse our CDF, when you look at how we disperse our bursaries, you will find that because of our population, we are not able to treat this child the same way a child in Mandera will be treated. A child in Mandera will get up to 40,000 and they can actually get money that will take them to college. One child in Meru County will only be able to get a bursary of 3,000 shillings. So he said, be fair, have some element of, and remember, those counties up in the north, no population withstanding, they're still getting the equalization fund. So I think you needed to bring people who understand the logic behind how to, solve that equation. Because the last I want to do, or the last me and you want to do as XYZ taxpayer, is to give out money that will not be shared equally. I do not want a child in Embu to suffer at the expense of another child in a different county. Equalize. If we are going to equalize education, let us do so. Because in education, in per class, when you look at that capita, Linda, it is who comes to school. So you cannot have one county where you have classrooms that are empty and other classrooms, and they are getting a lot of money, and other classrooms in certain counties or constituencies that have a serious population, kids are actually cramped in one classroom and they are getting less money.
I am lost here, Muthuma. Is it a question of the fact that these other, I don't want to call them marginalized regions or backgrounds, have low population, and that's okay because, well, we understand that Mount Kenya has quite a huge population. But then I had a conversation the other time with members of parliament here from the so-called marginalized regions, and they argued that there's been so much advantage that has been taken to the Mount Kenya region since those times, and so it's been hard for people on this other side to equally step up to the game. And therefore, that's the reason why they probably do not contribute much to the national kitty. And if allowed a chance to get them to the level of where Mount Kenya is, then probably we'd be speaking of a different story. And so if we are to empower the Mount Kenya region some more, or almost give them the equal thing, that you're giving on these other regions that are marginalized, are we ever going to get to a point where we'll say it's all right now, at least we also have these other regions contributing hugely to the national scale?
Linda, if you look at it that way, in fact, when somebody argues that way, it's a little bit flawed, and I'll tell you why. Any region right now in Kenya must proceed into thinking economically. And when you say thinking economically, even the arid areas, even the areas that we are calling marginalized, we cannot go with that for how do you explain Nairobi? Nairobi, raises up the biggest, chunk to our taxes.
Yes.
All right? But Barack will tell you here that he does not want a child from Mukuru Kwajenga disenfranchised and somebody else, receives that support. Not to say they don't need it, they can get it, but don't disenfranchise this child from Mukuru Kwajenga. You get? Yes. That is the logic we need to apply, Linda. We are not saying anybody to lose money. And there was a time this debate was quite heated because people within the marginal, they will point, their fingers to Mount Kenya. Oh, you guys, an amalgamation of 3 presidents, and you're still talking as if you're lost. No, that is not the point.
And therefore
the point is, do not hurt them while you sort the rest.
And so as it stands, would you argue then that the 70 constituencies that we have and how they have been balanced or how they have been, probably awarded or accorded to different regions that, had a top up is well placed?
No, well, Linda, I would argue on the basis of fairness. Is it fair? Is everybody getting their fair share? When you start, if we are going to start talking about the conversation we are having right now, that they have gotten 3, they have gotten 4, they have gotten 2. Why have we not gotten any? No, the fair share. Everybody should get their fair share, and that is why I thought Barack really. If we concentrate, Linda, if we concentrate upon the voter, the individual, the person, we will get it right. We will get it right. Honestly, if we concentrate about, sorting up the socio infrastructure, we will get it right, such that we are able to harmonize the delivery. Remember, at the end of the day, our taxes will be divided, and many people may feel, oh, we've gotten it less, we didn't get our fair share. But more than that, we need to push and think harder to realize if we are getting something called the equalization fund, what does it go to do? Instead of sending money, this has been a problem, and I'll give you an example. Instead of sending money, instead of sending money, huge chunks per child, 40, 50,000, all right? And then that money hits the county, and it's reverted back because this child will not go to school there. They are brought back to Nairobi, to a private school in Nairobi. We are not doing service to that county. What needs to happen is they need to get money to build institutions. I would really love if my child today goes to a school in Turkana that looks like Nairobi school. It's doable, because if Turkana gets this budget and they put it in social infrastructure, guess what will happen?
In this arrangement, Barak, does Turkana get that? Take your time. I know you're looking at your watch.
Yes, I'm looking.
Take your time. Take your time, Barak.
I'm looking at my watch, and I've seen that you have given Gabriel exactly.
Take your time, Barak. Take your time.
26
no,
minutes.
26 is a lie, Barak.
Barak, are you a lawyer?
A lawyer or a liar?
Are you a lawyer?
So let me have my.
Please do.
By
26 minutes.
Okay.
And take note that the two of you are eating into that time even now.
Okay.
Yeah, the first thing is that we are one country.
Right.
And that we want to look at ourselves as Kenyans. If we are going to encourage ourselves to be in a situation where we are all the time looking at things from the point of view that we are from Mount Kenya, we are from the lake, then we are taking the country to where it was in 2007. And I see that this notion of 41 against 1
coming back
is slowly creeping back.
Yeah.
When we see questions like this one, which is being asked about taking 32 to one region and telling the rest of the country that now this is what you have, share it among yourselves, regardless of all the arguments that Gabriel Muthuma is articulating with a lot of passion. Yeah. At some point I get worried that he might burst a vein because of that kind of passion, but mercifully he hasn't. In spite of all those arguments, you are driving the country towards an ethnic-based hegemony.
The country is already there, Dr.
It probably is already there,
yeah.
But it could get worse.
All right.
Because people are saying, wait a minute, this cannot work. There is an argument of population and numbers which is being advanced here. Let's take two examples. Take Kakamega County and take Kiambu County. Kakamega County has a bigger population than Kiambu County. And I want to say this, governing myself with the premise that I already made that we are Kenyans. And therefore it should not matter that some people from Kakamega live in Kiambu and some people whose homes are originally in Kiambu live in Kakamega. People should be able to live everywhere freely. Why should Kakamega, with a population that is bigger than Kiambu, have 2 new constituencies when Kiambu has got 6?
Okay.
I cannot understand the logic behind that, and I'm willing to subject myself to lessons on how this has been done. When people have asked, let us sit down and talk to one another and understand what is happening, they have been told, no, the train has already left the station. What we are not asking is where this train is hurtling towards. And this train is hurtling towards destination disaster. Oparanya has said very clearly, and I agree with him, that you are dividing the country.
Okay.
The conversations that we are having are dangerous. We are getting to a situation where this hegemony is going to find itself in parliament. When it gets its way in parliament under the what is likely to be the new constitution, you are going to have more MPs from one region all the time voting in a certain way. And they're going to take all these so-called resources, including and starting with leadership, to that particular part of the country. And you can sustain that only for a period of time.
Yeah.
It may be for a year, it may be for 5 years, it may be even for 15 years. But ultimately, this country will go to war because of this hegemony.
Yeah.
It's a hegemony that already takes the best of resources into a given region. When you start saying that there are numbers here, we must look at questions of things like infant mortality, questions like child mortality. How many children per birth, percentage terms, are dying before reaching the age of 5 in given parts of the country? Why is that the case? There are parts of this country which already had a head start, and it was a deliberate government policy that they must have a head start. Sessional paper number 10 of 1965 on the so-called African socialism and its application to planning deliberately said that we will take development to some parts of the country because they are already ahead. And they have never stopped to wait for the rest of the country. So when you talk about things like tax and taxation, and we must again place the figures here because in even state statistics themselves, they do not quite lend credence to what Gabriel Muthuma has said. There's probably more production of wealth in some parts of the country, but they have not been matched with production of tax.
Right.
There's more tax evasion than tax production, and we should not allow ourselves to be deceived. The taxes in this country are number 1 from Nairobi, and number 2 from the coast, and therefore maybe rightly you could say Nairobi has been given more constituencies than any other county. But look at the coastal constituencies, which are the second highest, and the second highest quantum of taxation from the coast is obviously because of the commerce and industry, particularly in the county of Mombasa. How is it sitting in this whole entire equation? People, especially President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga, and I don't know what they agreed with Kenyatta when they met in the beginning of 2018. These two leaders are taking this country to a dangerous destination. As Barack, I will look right in that camera and tell these two leaders that you are taking this country to a very dangerous place. It doesn't matter even if I will be the only voice that is saying to you that you are taking the country to a wrong destination. History will lend me credence. History will absolve me.
Then what would be the right direction?
And let's just carry on with this process. It has reached a point where apparently nobody can stop it unless it is the two leaders having a rethink of where they have taken the country, or the courts stopping the process because of the numerous issues that have been raised. Regardless, I am happy that I have had this opportunity to tell my country that you are going to a wrong place. Let it never be said that it was never said.
What then would be the right direction, Muthuma, in this case, if Barak argues that, well, the entire process, in as much as it could have some goodies that, you know, it presents to the people, is something that would not be friendly, you know, eventually. And if we are to look at how vulnerable the document is right now, especially when you see people who've supported it from day one, you know, in a way raising issues. While you could look at them and probably read malice, you could look at them and look at the tribal line, you could look at them and look at the regional aspect, they are confident to say that they have pinpointed issues that need to be addressed, and therefore they will not shy away from that. Do you agree in a way with what it is that Barak says, that if we're not careful, then we land ourselves in trouble?
Well, Linda, it's not only in BBI where we need to practice caution. I think it's throughout our political lifetime. For those that are politicians, you must have this in your back burner that whatever you do, anything you do, whether for self-preservation, as Daktari here says, or whether it's for your people, whatever you do, you are advancing something. And that something, if it's not positive, at some point it will boomerang, and the effects are usually disastrous. We walked in 2007 with our eyes wide open, you know, and it all started like a joke. It's pitting one person versus the other. And that's why I'm very concerned with where things are going. My worry, I told you earlier on, Linda, BBI did not just appear, it morphed
from the people,
from the 9-point agenda. And I would have expected at that time. Remember, we came past bombers.
Yes.
Remember, we had so many meetings. There was quite a lot that went. I would have expected at that particular time, at that point, for these people to come forward.
For Barak to say whatever is.
I would have expected.
Yes, indeed.
I know you will come.
Let me be very consistent.
Yes. That he
As
said this.
Barak, I have been very persistent that this country needs to slow down and to hold a conversation on where it is, how it has gotten there, and where it wants to go, and how it should go there. I have never tired of saying that. Nor have I ever tired of pointing out that the BBI has sidestepped the reasons why this country fights. And it's because of this perception of hegemony. In 2007, the clarion call was very clear. 41 against 1. Now you get into the BBI and you are perpetuating that notion of 41 against 1. And now you are building it into the constitution, the mother law of the country, the mother of all the other laws. To dismantle what we are walking into today, you will need another referendum to undo this. And it will be a very heated process. Those who will be there will remember this day. It will be a very heated process. Maybe the country will be emerging from a violent conflict. The conflict is likely to have taken the country 10, 15, 20 years. When you see things happening in some parts of the world, including Africa, don't imagine that they cannot happen here.
That is true.
And that is where we are taking this country. As an intellectual, somebody who has gone to school, I will not keep quiet and say that, oh, you should have come and have said it on that day. We can still save the country by soberly looking at this process again and asking ourselves about it. That is why when we go to elections, we fight. And we fight also because apart from this perception of hegemony, there's the perception that the election has been stolen. And the perception is that it has been stolen by those who control the instruments of power, by those who control the national economy, by those who control the politics of the country, by those who control the so-called independent institutions. This country must listen even to voices calling from the wilderness, such as mine and such as the voices of those three gentlemen and others who are saying, wait a minute, this train has left, but where is it going?
Hold it right there. Yes?
You see, I was actually executing a point before Barack came in. Now, there's one thing I'll agree with Barack. And what he has said is actually not something foreign. This is something many people have tried, to wade into. And this is how you create dissatisfaction. And not only that, this is how, hatred comes out. Because this issue of 70 constituencies, now, I'm not saying it's an easy thing, even though you're talking about, fair share and, creating the kind of system that everybody will get what their fair share should be. But also, it needs to be done in such a way that people understand how you arrive at these numbers. Because you have people who are thinking, wait a minute, why all this to that particular reason? If you don't understand it, I can guarantee you, I can see where Barack's concern is emanating from. And indeed, you can actually create a revolt against one particular community. And we saw this. It's not that it's never happened. We saw it in 2007. But what I'm building up, Linda, is to realize that we've had people who were serious proponents of BBI. They sat in committees. Some actually served in these committees. They had no problem with enlarging the leadership platform. They had no problem, at that particular point. It has only imagined that, now you've been hit by a sudden rush of morality, and you want to say this cannot be done. So that is why I call the con on politicians. And I keep insisting, we need to have sober debates. And if we are to be true to self, and if we were to be true to the people, this issue should have come out earlier. I am not here to advocate, of whether somebody should be kicked out of the committee that he served, or whether somebody has a dissenting voice. No, when it mattered, because sometimes really, Linda, you speak out when it matters. Let me tell you, the timing sometimes is as critical as the message you're sending across.
Do you realize, Muthuma, that we did not have the privilege of even understanding just what we were debating upon? Up until now, the elephant in the room is that we do not even know whether we have...
Linda, me and you.
Right.
Me and you can
Barack
be forgiven. No, Barack cannot be forgiven. Me and you can be forgiven.
All right.
Mama Boga outside there can be forgiven.
But Mama Boga makes the ultimate decision.
Let me tell you.
Yes.
My Fundi can be forgiven.
But the individuals,
we people, they have a deeper knowledge and understanding of our constitution. Now, Linda, let me give them a fallback.
Okay.
It depends, Barack, on what you are issuing. If you are telling me Orengo was giving an expert opinion, that can be understood. If you're telling me Governor Paranya was giving an expert opinion, yes. If you're telling me Otiende Amolo was giving a legal expert opinion, yes. But even then, Linda, why not earlier? You see, to me, the timing is where, then understand me this, the timing is where the message arrives and the king has already executed somewhere. So that message does not help.
And true to it, this conversation that we're bringing up right now, at least overlook everything else, but let's focus on this. These individuals were there. Nothing has changed.
Thank you, my dear. That's all I'm trying to say.
Nothing has changed,
but that's all I'm trying to say.
Ask him to
calm
down.
That's how emotive it can get.
Thank you, Linda.
Ask him to calm down. Someday he's going to wish he had calmed down. And so let us help him to compose himself. Now, Monday last week, I told you about a young man called Saul. They say, and they threw their clothes at the feet of a young man called Saul, who was supervising the stoning of an apostle called Stephen in the Acts of the Apostles. And I told you that when I read in the 9th chapter, he sees the light. We must not assume that society obtains in stasis. There is dynamism. There's even dynamism of thought. And that dynamism and a bout of dynamism, or if I could borrow from my good brother, a rush of dynamism, or a bout of dynamism could afflict His Excellency the President and his brother Raila Odinga. Then they may just want to listen to the voices of reason and say, let us slow down this train a bit. Because yes, it is true, these self-same people, and I said that on Saturday last week, go and read me. I said last week that the same fellows have also previously behaved like cows. They have followed the Grand Master blindly. But to their credit, they have reached a point where they are saying, wait a minute, this thing is sinking.
And to note, when Ngunjiri made an about turn, or Ngunjiri made an about turn at least, and Muthuma is okay with that, but he's not okay with the fact that these individuals equally
have made an about turn. But Ngunjiri is about turn is because he's part of the hegemony. Yeah, I can look that camera in the eye and tell Ngunjiri, you fool nobody. You are part of the hegemony. And this hegemony, we have seen what it has done to the country before. And so as thinkers, and this gentleman, Muthuma here, should not say things like they can blame Barack, not me. Gabriel Muthuma has been drilled in the finest Ivy League universities in the United States of America and their equivalents in the United Kingdom and beyond. And he has got a bundle of degrees, university degrees from those places. And he belongs to the think tank domain of the hegemony. And you can see him. You can see him coming here as an ideologue.
Do you belong to the think tank?
Linda, I need the advantage of counsel. I need the advantage of a lawyer. This is too much.
And speaking with a lot of passion, as indeed he should. Because if he did otherwise, we would be baffled.
You'll be off
about what had afflicted him. But said and done, the people you are saying that they don't understand, they are going at some point to start riding on the energy of instinct. Because even then they will not understand. They are the people who are called the cannon fodder. And when they are hungry, when they are not able to go to hospital and get medicines there, and when they are not able to keep their children in school, someone will tell them it's because all the resources went to a certain place. And when they hear that it's because all the resources went to a certain place, they look around themselves for what seems to represent that certain place. I was there in 2007 in Emmanuel, where I strived to rescue a gentleman whom people were blaming for what they called a stolen election. And I have written about it. You can find it in the press. And I was saying, this man has not stolen anybody's election. He has lived in this community ever since I was a little boy. When my eyes opened, I saw him living here. He has been one of us. We have grown with him. And you find these things happening everywhere. Read Amateur World on Fire, and you'll find how we begin segregating and disaggregating ourselves, and we start saying, you are also from there. You can read Koigi wa Wamwere towards genocide in Kenya, and you will find the same arguments are advanced there. So let us be a little cautious even as we push for these things, because as I have said, it will take another referendum to undo them. And that referendum will not come out of processes like the ones we are seeing today. It will come out of processes that will make 2017 and 2007 look like a children's Christmas holiday.
All right, what valid points then do these dissenting voices actually present in terms of substance that would challenge or counter what it is that the BBI bill has today? And Muthuma, what would it take to make an about turn that will probably save us trouble? I mean, hold it right there. We are coming to answer that after this short break.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongee zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Wewe usijali. Tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Ndio vile nitaongea na kila mmoja wao.
Very good. Piga *444# utunukiwe Credo double.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
Oh, hi. It's not what you're thinking. It's a cup of coffee. Coffee, movie. Together, Coffee with Movie. Every Sunday, 8 p.m. on TV 47, where we bring you interesting, enticing people. Well, we've concentrated on musicians.
Yeah. Yeah.
Producers.
So now I manage, because telemanagement and events management, I think, was my passion.
Right about now, we want to go beyond to the counties and to other countries. I'll see you. Let the sun stand still like Joshua time for 3 hours, but this time for only 1 hour. We bring you Coffee with Movie. Interesting, enticing guests. I'll see you. Tunaweza anza tuna Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, twende Uganda, Magufuli Land, TZ, you never know. It is Coffee with Movie. Jua unaweza enda sasa.
Okay.
Before the markets open.
Advice and governance expert Gabriel Muthuma. And before we take that break, these were my key questions. One, this one goes to Barack. Well, let's start with Muthuma now that you were the last one to speak. And Muthuma, I mean, why not? What would it take us to probably just decide, you know, it's all right. We have probably come all this way. But then again, we realize that there's a problem in this document. A problem that, you know, Barack pinpoints, a majority of other Kenyans, you know, are pinpointing that we probably need to look into this. Yeah. And then if we do, this will save us from so much, from plunging into disaster, because like we all agree, we are not special in any way. We have seen all these nations going down just because of a very simple, silly mistake.
Right.
Why not take that about time?
Let me tell you something, Linda. First of all, I told you earlier on about the con of our politicians. And a good case in point, even though Barack thinks that I'm holding fort for such a person, even Mujiri,
yes,
the MP for Bahati, he needs actually to be chastised because he was a key player in saying how BBI was, was a flawed and a flawed document. But look at what he did. So I also chastised him. Why now? Why did you come out now at the floor of the House? You should have been part and parcel of selling that document. So I still, you can't convince me that he was a serious fellow, from day one. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes when the message arrives late, it actually does more of a disservice than it not arriving at all. Because, if there was anything that was being carried, it has already, been carried. If there are actions that were extraneous and actually disastrous, they've already happened. So the issue of what can we do to turn it around, it's not all lost. Because you go back to the first article of our Constitution where the power rests, and that's how I started this conversation. Where does the power rest? It rests with we, the people. I hope if this is not something, or if BBI is not something that Kenyans feel it will change their lives, they have a constitutional right to vote against the document. If they feel that their lives will be impacted positively, then they will vote for the document.
In a country that we've had lots of litigations in regards to just how elections have been handled, in a country that is worried of the formation of the IEBC as it stands right now, will that vote really count?
That notwithstanding, at the end of the day, you must realize where power lies.
Okay.
And that's why I keep calling on Kenyans to be edified, to be informed, because that is what makes the change. Tell you what, Linda, we are actually we're not sitting pretty, really, if you look at it.
Okay.
After 2007, a team of experts led by the retired Judge Johansen Krigler, they sat down and came with a raft of actions that should actually be fulfilled before any election. Even though most of what they agreed upon gave birth to the 2010 Constitution and the promulgation thereafter, we still have not taken into account, and we still have not fervently and seriously looked into some of the issues that ignited 2007. Key among those were the IEBC. There was preparations towards an election. And they actually wrote down formulas. They actually wrote action points to say that before any elections, any national elections, any presidential elections, the systems within IEBC must be a go 24 months prior. Look at where we are. Look at what we are playing with. You get? So that's why I say we are not seated pretty. And for us not to realize this, we are actually playing at the brink, of the abyss. And that's why I think goodwill must suffice.
Okay.
Kenyans must start having a serious discussion. We must be informed about some of the things that we are talking about. And that's why I say, if need be, Kenyans were to sit down and dialogue. Because, by the way, that was what this document was supposed to produce. A national dialogue that will ensure we are where we need to be as a country, and we do not revert
a national
into the
dialogue
cyclic.
When some individuals are told the train has left the station and therefore there's really nothing that can be done towards incorporating your suggestions in this.
Linda,
make it
the minute somebody tells you there's nothing you can do, it is a very big lie. When power is vested and rests in you, what do you mean there's nothing you can do, Linda? This bill, where does it go after Senate? Where does it go?
To the people. All right. Okay. Barack, as you react to that also, I don't know whether when they say this, they always pinpoint at the deputy president or, what individuals they look at. But you've constantly had people say, the naysayers back then, when we're talking about getting the 2010 constitution on board, the very same people who are here now acting in defense of the constitution as it looks, they have been beneficiaries of the same. And now the same people who are naysayers as to the amendment process that we're speaking about right now, many argue they do not present so much of substance to counter what it is that the proponents are presenting. What would you say about that? Why not counter this with substance that will, give us reason to indeed argue that there's need for us to relook into this process as opposed to sailing through with it as it is?
First of all, I want to make it very clear that I really don't care about William Ruto.
Okay.
And I really don't care whether he becomes this country or not. And by the same token, I don't care about Musalia Mudavadi, Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, the entire lot of them and Kabudol. I don't care about them.
Okay.
I care about this country and where this country is going. I don't care about any of these individuals that we are seeing on the national landscape when the chips are down. And therefore,
they will be part of the implementers,
it's not going to matter
as Muthuma says.
To me, Linda, if you maybe
allow you, yes,
the hostess,
whatever it is that you've taken this morning.
I know.
Yeah,
I know. Has been sitting here, even the water.
It is water.
Yeah.
All right.
It's Muthuma who has taken something. I don't care about these gentlemen.
Yeah.
And all the people who are following them and shouting this and shouting that. Because those shouting crowds have been there before. On Monday morning, they were shouting, welcoming Jesus Christ in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And on Friday, they were shouting, saying, crucify him. So they will do the same again. My role is to tell the country where it is going. And to tell the country, to remind us that these people whom Muthuma is talking about, they are waiting to be guided by the same fellows, who say they have read. I have read for you. Did you see these people having even the basic courtesy to print the document using our state money and to make it available to us? Did you see them creating proper discussion forums? You saw people rushing to Meru, rushing to Kakamega, rushing to Kisii, rushing to Wajir in rushed town halls with rehashed things. They would not allow anyone to speak to them. And then in the afternoon, they would be in the stadium and they would say, Meru imepitisha, Kisii imepitisha, Kakamega imepitisha. Now that is the architecture of disaster. And I am a student of war and peace studies. I've taken degrees in some of the best universities, second only to the ones Muthuma went to. And I can tell you how you prepare a recipe for disaster. And this whole Africa is in a disastrous clutch. And I don't know why Kenya is determined to go the same way. Nigeria is finished. You can write that down that I've told you today. Nigeria is finished. In another 3-4 years, there are going to be 3-4 countries out of Nigeria. Look at Cameroon. You can start from that side if you want. You look at the Sahrawi Republic. You look at Burkina Faso. You look at Senegal. You look at Nigeria. You look at Cameroon. You look at the Central African Republic. You look at DRC. Are we getting closer home?
When you're taking that direction,
you look at Uganda. Hear me out. You look at Uganda. You can see Sudan up here. You can see Southern Sudan. You can see Chad. You can see Libya. You can see Somalia, you can see Ethiopia. What is wrong with us?
External forces?
No.
We're blaming it.
It is ourselves.
Okay.
We must look inwards. And you know, when I read the Bible and you've asked me what I have drunk, the Holy Spirit.
All right, let's see.
When I read the Bible, I see that there's a man who wanted a man of God to send someone from the land of the dead to go and tell his relatives in the land of the living not to do certain things that had been done, lest they should end up there. And he was told they have their prophets. If they don't listen to them, they will not listen, even if someone should come from the land of the dead. We are the prophets, and we are telling this country where it is going, and it had better listen to us. But even if it doesn't listen, prophets have not been listened to in the past.
Okay. Muthuma.
That's an interesting conversation. No, I think
yes, as we close on the BBI, because evidently we now await to see what Senate does.
Yes.
And as much as really does.
Senate, there's
no question. There's no way to wait.
We know what will happen, and then we know it will go to the so-called voters, and it is the same problem. You are taking it where it was. Where it was that you had an electoral authority that could not be trusted. You had voters who didn't know why they were voting. You are going back to the source.
No, like Baraka said, well, the Senate, they've really, they, whether they like it or not, and I had one of them just saying that the Senate is not going to be used as a rubber stamp. And on BBI, that's exactly what they're going to do. That's what they're going to be
used.
Yes, yes. It doesn't matter how they
do we
vote.
then read malice in this? Because
it's not malice. It doesn't matter what you do at this point.
Yes.
If it's not stopped by the court, it will go to a referendum.
Speaking of the courts, Muthuma, it is a document that is vulnerable and likely to go through quite quite many or quite of court processes in terms of the litigations that we're likely to see crop up courtesy of these, based on the conversations that are lingering around. Well, after all,
Linda, I can see your point, and sometimes you can look at it and say, well, is the court not skewed? And I will not want to believe. I will not want to believe that. And like Barack, I still have. I want to believe that we can do the right thing. I want to believe that we can put country first. I want to believe that all of us have a chance. I would like to believe that this country can rise up and become the great country our forefathers thought or wanted it to be. And if that must hold true, then all institutions must work towards ensuring that every Kenyan not only is protected, but he's given a fair chance. Now, having said that, Linda, I am concerned, just like most other people are. And that's why I've always called upon the Mwana Nchi to be informed. Yes, Barack has raised a pertinent issue that we have foolishness in high places where a very educated person will say, I will not read because so-and-so has read. And when I hear things like, when I see things like those, I really cringe, because there is no greater disservice you can do to a man than taking their free will to think independently and put into action what they believe to be right.
Gabriel, maybe the conversation is different because Kenyans will tell you that there's probably nothing to read this time around.
No. And this is where we go wrong.
Okay.
You know what, Linda? All nations that have become great have one thing in common: an informed electorate. Whether it was, and I'm talking about democracy.
That's true.
They've had informed electorate, and those that were not democratic, guess what? They've had great leaders. Great. I told somebody, and we were making an argument, and I told somebody, when you have people believe that there's nothing for them, the system becomes broken. Banan, that becomes the attitude. Nobody cares. I do not want, Linda, Kenyans to treat BBI as with a laissez-faire approach. Whatever happens, happens. That is indeed wrong. I would rather somebody goes and vote against it. All right?
Yeah.
I would rather somebody exercises something. But, Linda, at some point, me and you must quit passing the test of constitutionalism. Let me explain what I mean.
Okay.
By us saying that every time we pass the test of constitutionalism, yes, the Constitution allows me and you to do that which is right, but we must move and transcend just the voting. We must build character and essence. We must understand why we are voting, because tell you what, we are going to do things foolishly and then we will look behind and say we were duped. Remember,
yes,
that has actually been, you will find somebody say, oh, I didn't understand, I was duped. My good friend will tell you, there are people who at given times, and this happens in the legal fraternity, in court, somebody will be told a court prosecutor or a court attorney will be hired on your behalf. And they will think they are clever, and probably they will want to play their monkey business, and guess what? They go and lose the case. Do you know what they say? They go back to ignorance. I didn't know. It can no longer be our defense. And that's why I think this document, the BBI document, we should have had a serious conversation around it and to know what must come out, what must we do to ensure that if the major core issues is to ensure that we do not have every 5 years, that cyclic moment where there is violence after every election. If the issue is to create a balloon where people, cultures are able to emerge, we are able to marinate our resources, we are able to think clearly and come up with one united front. If Kenyans were debating that, trust you me, Linda, would be in a safe place. But now, look where we are heading. Guys are like, there is something. But it is late in the game. What needs to do now, when the document goes for a referendum, we have certain months. I would expect, and Barack, this is my honest expectation, if the proponents are going to inject and immerse themselves in trying to teach the populace the advantages of this document. And I know there are other people who are going to come out to say, we have a problem here. This document should not be seen as it has been cast on stone.
Okay.
No constitution anywhere in the world should actually be that. People change constitutions, and constitutions are there to be changed. The dynamic of that document should remain alive to the fact that this is not working for us. This is working for us. We need to change this. That is what upright thinkers
would do.
Upright politicians, upright leaders do. They may not, you may not get your way, but they will listen to you.
All right, Barack.
You know, I don't want to tell you what happened in England in 1646. I don't want to tell you about the great charter that we read of in history called the Magna Carta and how it happened. But when I look at President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga rolled into one, they constitute our equivalent of King Charles the First, who would not listen when people were telling him where his country was going. And he plunged his country between the years 1642 and 1651 into what has gone down in history as the English Civil War, at the end of which Oliver Cromwell had to take charge for about 10 years as the protector of England. And the monarchy was set aside for a while, and I don't want to tell you what befell the monarchy. In such an advanced civilization even then, 1642. More than 600 years after William the Bastard had established the monarchy.
Yeah.
Now that is where the country is going, and it's going there because these people do not listen. Forget about these things which we are being told. Let us go to the referendum. The people will decide. These are buzzwords. These are sound bites. They're not going to take us anywhere. The same people, the fickleness of the people are so fickle in the proper order of time. These same people whom you are going to herd into voting for this thing and add on state machinery and push the whole thing through because of short-termism. Some people are looking at things like, I want to become prime minister. I want to be president or CEO of the country forever, and I can come in another guise. I can become the latter day Putin, Vladimir Putin. Others are saying, I have lost a lot of time in the trenches. I must now be part of this thing. And then they come and sugarcoat it with the things which my brother, these are the properly learned people. Forget about those lawyers who call themselves learned friends. These are the properly learned people. Lawyers cram laws which they come and tell you, and they cannot think outside those narrow prisms of law. These are
you are done, Barak.
These are the truly learned.
If you go to court, they will kill you.
Learned people, eh? Yeah? Okay?
Right.
These are Kina Muthuma here. These things which they are telling us that the people will decide. There are no people out there to decide. Hamado Koruma wrote a book which everybody who has the capacity to read, unfortunately we don't read, is called Waiting for the Beasts to Vote. And that is where we are now. We are waiting for the beasts to vote. They have no idea what is in this document. Someone will come and tell them, vote like this, and they will vote in that direction. Unfortunately, I do not have the capacity to tell them, don't vote for this thing. The only thing I can do, Linda and Gabriel, Muthuma and viewers, is to pray for divine intervention.
Okay.
This is the point where God must intervene. and maybe God himself will come down.
Well, let's close it on this point. And Muthuma, now that you are here and in a way would be one of the people who would say are, for this particular document. And just picking it up from what Barak has said as we close it in maybe 1 minute or so. 3 arms of government. I do not know whether we are in a capacity to probably counter what it is the likes of Korea say, that after you vote, you go for your whatever on the other side, because then we'd question why is it that they would take long, taking us round and round, and then eventually proceed to agree with this particular or vote the document. And so one would look at it as though it's already a compromised process right from the word go. And therefore we say the only reason that this would not take us to a referendum is if the courts are there. Also an arm of government that has been squeezed for quite a while right now, and the chances of it being compromised are equally extremely high. I mean, how then can we confidently say that even when the people vote, it's going to be...
There was a time around 2017 when it wasn't the best thing, but the courts kind of redeemed themselves, the Supreme Court.
Okay.
And you saw they actually, cancelled the president and entire presidential election. Whether you look at that as a point where the court was raising a voice and making a change, they did that. And that's why I told you, Linda, if we all do that which is right, we are okay. Let me repeat that. If every Kenyan does or they do that which is right, we are okay.
But just how many of us would do that? Thank you so much. governance expert Gabriel Muthuma, Dr.